Good morning, world. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Baptiste show. It's a tremendous pleasure to be here with you guys. My name is Roberto Baptiste. We actually have this podcast live on YouTube every morning of the weekdays, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. till 11:30 a.m. You don't have a chance to catch us live. We welcome you as well. Whether you're listening or watching this podcast, this vlog, again, thank you for your time. As you guys know and you're aware, the primaries are going on full swing, especially for the Republican Party, because as you know, President Biden is running for re-election, so the Democrats are not really worried about primary. It's just formalities. Unless something major was to occur, then President Biden will be challenged or would have some kind of a primary going on with the Democratic Party. However, with regards to the Republicans, the field is just full of potential candidates or candidates here, people that have announced, people that have been running a full campaign. This show, we do come in and discuss politics, headline news, a bit of humor, but more importantly, we ensure that we provide you a fresh take, right? We always say you don't have to agree with what we were saying, but at least we want you to consider what we were saying. So if you can consider it as a factor when it comes to your news source and how you interpret the 24-hour news cycle coming at you, then that's a win for us when it comes to that. But I don't think too many of you at this stage right now are aware of who's running, who's not running. So part of our job is to inform you here in the Baptist Show. So looking at some of those candidates, we wanted to take a moment today to discuss and talk about some of them actually. As you know, President Trump is the one that will be leaving for last because, after all, he's leading the Republican primary field by like 30 points almost. So he's well ahead of everyone else. And we're going to leave him for last because, at the end of the day, he's the most recognized figure because having sat in the Oval Office before in the Republican Party and the world, right? So, one of the folks running for President of the United States on the ticket of the Republican side in the primaries here is former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, right? He was governor of New Jersey from 2010 to 2018. He was a U.S. District Attorney in New Jersey from 2002 to 2008. Um, Actually, he was a member of the campaign council for President Bush campaign in 2000 when President Bush defeated Al Gore in the 2000 election, right? So Chris Christie in this election cycle, these primaries for the Republican Party, is casting himself as the alternative to President Trump. So again, being a former prosecutor himself, he's really gone after President Trump's latest legal trouble, whereas he's ensuring that the Republican field and the Republican potential voters know that it is not normal for a candidate, former president, to have actually four indictments in four different cases. That's kind of his hot button when it comes to his campaign issues that he's pushing out there. It's interesting because again, uh, President Trump is the Republican Party today. So for someone to go on and attack him head on, that's kind of very brave on his part. But some might dare to say very stupid as well because it has not materialized yet in the poll because he's running well behind President Trump and well behind some of the other candidates that we'll be discussing here as well. So only time will tell when it comes to this strategy. Is he positioning himself for a general election run to actually point out, well, I was the only Republican candidate to actually go after President Trump? Maybe that's what he's counting on. Also banking on the fact that maybe President Trump might get convicted on one of those cases. But he's playing the long-term game. But we know when it comes to politics, things change on a daily basis. In a nanosecond, things change. So will he have enough life to see the fruits of his labor here? We don't know. So that's Governor Chris Christie. Now we have another governor in the race. That's the current governor of the state of Florida, Ron DeSantis. Well, DeSantis has been Florida's governor from 2019 till now. He was a representative in the U.S. House of Representatives from 2013 to 2018. He was also a lieutenant in the U.S. Navy. So, as we know, Governor DeSantis have been somewhat controversial over the last few years. This is someone that came into the governor's mansion in Florida after a narrow win. So after that, he realized he had to embrace some of President Trump's policies and tactics and whatnot. So he became very close to President Trump, which kind of led a lot of people to believe that he was not going to run for president, especially after he just got reelected for the governorship in Florida. And some were hoping and praying that he will wait his turn and actually get the baton for the MAGA movement from President Trump. But that was not to be because Ron DeSantis believed that he could take on President Trump and the rest of the Republican primary candidates. So as a result, he launched his campaign. Had a few faux pas, a few mistakes along the way, but you want to look at him as the guy that's made a lot of head turn with some of his policies, whether it's policies with regards to education in the state of Florida, policies with regards to slavery, statements with regards to slavery, whereas one of the latest ones is that slavery benefited African Americans who actually learned some kind of a trade from slavery. So that got the governor into a lot of talking points after making such statements. But he's gone into the first primary debate last week and performed not so well, according to some, but also he did not make any major mistakes. So he's literally trying to be the statesman in the room, but also the most controversial statesman because this is a governor that has sent a lot of immigrants to Martha's Vineyard and so many other places that are led by Democrat executives. So as a result, he wanted the national attention. He's gotten it, but more than anything else, this is a governor that's in deep trouble with one of the biggest businesses in the United States, if not the biggest business in the state of Florida, which is Walt Disney World. So we know the controversy where he removed some of the powers that Disney had, especially in the water district that they were in. So there are a lot of legal battles going on between Governor DeSantis and the Walt Disney World Corporation, penning him basically as anti-corporation, which is not a good thing for some of his donors because, as you know, the Republican Party mainly get their money to run campaigns from a lot of corporations in America. So as a result, this is something that's still developing when it comes to his support base and whatnot. And he hasn't been uh, so much on the offensive lately with regards to Disney, especially after Disney changed their CEO. This is again developing. Let's wait and see because without money, you can't run an effective campaign. So let's wait and see what happened there with Governor DeSantis. We also have our conservative talk show host Larry Helder that's running as well, but we don't want to really discuss him too much because so far he hasn't made an impact. But we do have former U.S. ambassador in South Carolina, former governor Nikki Haley, right? Nikki Haley was a House of Representative member from the great state of South Carolina from 2004 to 2010. She actually was the governor of South Carolina from 2011 to 2017, and of course, a U.S. ambassador to the United Nations under President Trump from 2017 to 2018. So Nikki Haley has made some headways in this race, this presidential primary race for the Republican Party. She's a woman. She's a minority, so she's basically providing an alternative to a lot of the narrative being pushed by the left and Democrats that basically the Republican Party was that white old man party. You can't say that when you have someone like Nikki Haley as a front runner in the Republican primary. So the Republicans are doing quite well in this cycle in rebranding themselves, despite some of the policies that minorities might disagree with. Again, they are making that effort. We did tell you this show is not about repeating what everybody's repeating out there. We're going to tell you the straight facts. Again, you don't have to agree, but we'll point it out to you and it's worth considering. So Nikki Haley had a fantastic debate last week as well. So let's wait and see because she does have executive experience, having been the governor of the state of South Carolina for as long as she. We have also Will Hurd, again, not making too much of an impact. Kind of surprising that the governor of Arkansas, um, Asa Hutchinson, is not making headways either because he had the name recognition coming into this. But let's wait and see. It's still early. One of the person that we do want to talk about is former VP, former Vice President Mike Pence. Mike Pence was a representative in the U.S. House of Representatives from 2001 to 2013, long time public servant. He was the governor of Indiana from 2013 to 2017, and obviously Vice President of the United States under President Trump from 2017 to 2021. This is someone basically that's taking on his old boss here because he believes he can help lead this nation forward. So what we also saw in the primary debate, the first debate, is that uh, I'm sorry, Vice President, former Vice President Pence came swinging, especially when it comes to Vivek Ramaswamy that we'll be talking about next. So what ended up happening is that it seems as though former Vice President Pence realized if you're not running second behind President Trump, you need to show the people in the room, the potential voters, why you should be at the very least, and then make it a contest between you and former President Trump. So as a result, coming into the night, Vivek Rashwani and Ramaswamy, I'm sorry, and also Governor DeSantis were tied for second. So we saw a barrage of attack from former VP Pence against Vivek Ramaswamy, which he fended off for the most part. But that was interesting to see that other side of VP Pence because the VP role in the United States is more so someone that focuses on the behind the scenes stuff, the policy stuff. This is not someone you really see in the political arena being aggressive, attacking others and whatnot, especially in terms of campaigning. So for him to do so, that really shows that he really wants this. How much is he willing to sacrifice to get there? I don't know, but it was quite interesting. Now, Vivek Ramaswamy is an interesting individual, 35 years old, the youngest running in this race on the Republican side. Vivek is an entrepreneur. He's had some asset management companies that actually got into the pharmaceutical industry, and that's where he's made his wealth. Some are even saying at this point, and some evidence pointing that he had some deals with some of the big pharmaceutical companies. Remember, in the US today, populism is at an all time high. So that means folks want someone that's anti establishment. So now here you have this 35-year-old Vivek Ramaswamy coming into this race with a very diverse background, casting himself as the outsider, but some are already challenging that narrative that he's peddling and stating that Vivek is establishment. Vivek has been in bed with Big Pharma. So the candidate's campaign is very aggressive in pushing back against some of those narratives, especially after the first debate, excuse me, where we saw Governor Christie, former VP Pence, Governor DeSantis, all coming in on the offensive against Vivek, whereas they were pointing out the fact that perhaps he was just using ChatGPT out there. That was Christie's famous line in putting out stuff, but with no experience to back it up, actually. And one of the most controversial ideas that Vivek Ramaswamy has is that you should ban the Department of Education. You should not ban, but defund or eliminate a lot of the administrative offices that exist in the United States to also include, I believe, the FBI and so on and so forth. So he's got a lot of controversial ideas, and the way he positioned himself, in his own words, is that he believes President Trump did not go far enough, and President Trump was tied and bound by the deep state, and as a result, being the person that he is, he wants to go as far as the MAGA movement wanted to go in eliminating the deep state and making sure that the government is functioning for the people. So let's wait and see because we've seen a lot of Vivek Ramaswamy's come into the political arena in the United States. They crash and burn as things starts getting deeper into the race where people are voting. So let's wait and see if he can capitalize some of those great branding and messaging efforts he's been doing across social media and converting that into votes when it comes to the primary caucuses that are opening as early as January, basically in some of the states that matter in terms of voting or electing the primary candidate for the U.S. presidency from the Republican Party. You also have Senator Tim Scott. I believe he's the only senator running in this cycle here. So obviously, he's a sitting U.S. senator. He was a U.S. House member of the U.S. House Representative from 2011 to 2013. He's got a background in financial services as well. Senator Tim Scott has been one of those that actually have positioned himself quite well as a elected member of the House and the Senate. He's proven to be quite an effective legislator, actually, and bridging the gap between partisanship and getting things done at times. But he's not gaining traction because at the end of the day, what are people looking for? I don't think he's connecting enough with the people from the Republican Party. So this is quite interesting because, again, at the end of the day, no one knows what's going to happen in that field because of who's leading the field. And obviously, we have to talk about him because he's the leader, he's the main figure of the Republican Party, and that's why we left him for last. President Donald J. Trump, or former President Donald J. Trump. With regards to the MAGA movement, there's nothing that we need to tell you. You already know what's going on. But President Trump now is in the driver's seat, but also, unfortunately, his future, he's not being uh, in his own hands, so to speak, because of the legal cases that he has going on. Now, President Trump is leading the field of the Republican primaries by 30 some odd points right now. It was actually 40 points at one point, and it seems at the news of an additional indictment, President Trump gained more points, whereas even his mugshot, people thought or assumed that as soon as his mugshot hit the airwaves and people wanted that to happen, especially people from the left, that he was going to lose a lot of support. On the contrary, President Trump and his team utilized that and the mass communication to their advantage in putting his face, the mugshot, on a lot of merchandises that are flying off the shelves of his campaign. A lot of the money is also going towards his legal funds, the funds that's going to help him with his legal cases here. The latest case in Georgia is a RICO case where he's being tried along with 18 others for racketeering, which is unprecedented and that's never been heard before. Again, we are always in uncharted territories when it comes to President Trump. This is not a jab at him. This is just reality. From the moment he decided to enter the arena of politics, it's been nonstop of hearing this word. This is uncharted. This is uncharted. This is uncharted. And that's just the candidate that President Trump is, that just the person that he is, where he's always pushing the envelope. Now, we discussed this recently and we want to discuss it again because at the end of the day, whether you're a Republican, whether you're a Democrat, no matter where you find yourself on the political sphere in the United States, you have to pause for a moment and ask yourself what is going to happen if President Trump, A, wins the primaries, and then B, gets convicted in one of his cases and have to go to jail. Now, keep in mind, you also have Constitution of the United States that does not have a provision. This is a constitution that does not prevent someone from running if they are facing indictment, that does not prevent someone from running if they are convicted. Now, here's a bit of a precedent that we have, but not really a precedent, because we have former Congresswoman Maxine Waters recently that was convicted, and then she took a plea deal with the U.S. government, and she still ran for U.S. House of Representatives from the Democratic side. So ultimately, I believe she bowed out of the race or something of that effect. But at the end of the day, she was still able to run. She was still able to do everything. So here you're going to have something that's going to have to go to the U.S. Supreme Court, ultimately, from a legal standpoint, in deciding whether or not the president can be a sitting president if convicted of a crime. Now, when it comes to that, We don't know from a pure legal standpoint. We're not lawyers. We're giving you our opinion. We don't know what's going to happen because there has not been a single case where that's happened in the past. So what we call the legal precedent does not exist yet. So do you believe a conservative-led Supreme Court is going to side with the left and the liberal side when it comes to interpreting the Constitution and deciding whether or not President Trump is still fit for office? That's the question. We said the other day, and I'm going to repeat it again, whether you're a Republican or you're a Democrat, we will be at an impasse. What we hope and pray for is that things will be kept civil, peaceful, and actually we will put America first in deciding the next step. I know a lot of people don't want to think that far, but when you have a candidate as formidable as President Trump, I don't care if you like the man, if you hate the man, that's your prerogative, that's your right. But no one has ever been as effective or more effective than President Trump in running a campaign. Point blank, simple, period. Because again, this is a man that has turned the world of politics in America upside down. Whether you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, that's a simple fact that you got to agree with. Because every single time that folks believe President Trump was done, he's surprised the entire world and the arena of politics and beyond and beat the odds. This is someone that always beat the odds in terms of politics. That is why he could not accept that he lost to President Biden, because he firmly believed he outperformed President Biden when President Biden won against him. But at the end of the day, it's politics. At the end of the day, it's a bloody, bloody affair when it comes to uh, running a campaign. But President Trump has a base following that is not going to abandon him overnight. The reason why we're praying for things to be kept civil and peaceful is that what happened when, or if, let's say rather, President Trump wins the primary, he ended up winning the general elections, and then he gets convicted. How do you convince his base that it's not a political witch hunt? Before he was even indicted, President Trump set up the narrative that this was a political witch hunt. Can you see a scenario in which President Trump will concede and actually walk away if convicted, yet he's won the general election against President Biden? My friend, I'm telling you right now, as a country, we have to prepare for all kind of eventualities. Again, I don't want to hear when we get there that this is unprecedented. We never saw this coming. Yeah, we can all see it coming. Question is, are we preparing ourselves as Americans for it? Are we preparing ourselves as a country for it? I firmly believe this. You might not, but rich, poor, black, white, Asian, at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We're all Americans trying to find a way to live our lives as best as we can here. We're fathers, we're sons, we're daughters, we're mothers, we're sisters, we're brothers that wake up every morning, have a shared problem, that actually goes to the grocery store and see the price of milk and wonder when is milk gonna come back down, when eggs prices are gonna drop again, when gas prices are gonna be reasonable. We have a bunch of shared issues in this country. But unfortunately, with the political divide and some of the issues that we face, we don't look ourselves as Americans when it comes to making those huge decisions that can impact our nation for the next 25, 50 to 100 years. And I think that's the kind of reminder that we need, that at the end of the day, what will go on with President Trump will impact us for the next 100 of years, if not more. And what I mean by that is, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, you got to look at it from the perspective of what happened when the shoe is in the other foot. We all know this from a historical standpoint. The Republican Party has always been more aggressive in terms of driving some of the issues home than the Democrats. Doesn't mean they play dirty, they play nasty. That is not what we're saying. We're saying they have been way more effective. And I'll give you a perfect example. The 2016 elections, the President Trump campaign, and how Republicans drove home the narrative about Hillary Clinton's email, the Benghazi affairs. Guys, that was one of the most effective piece of campaigning I've ever seen. Again, you don't have to agree. Just go back to the facts, because when the FBI released the memo that they were potentially investigating the emails of Secretary Clinton at the time, that was a damaging blow for her campaign. And I think she actually recalled it later afterwards and said it was one of the most decisive things in terms of what ended her campaign and gave victory to President Trump. So imagine, even when there is not much there, Republicans are effective in driving and dividing a wedge across this nation when it comes to it and getting the votes that they need. Again, it's politics, it's elections. You got to get elected, so you need votes. You got to be effective at it, so long it's legal, right? So what happened when you do have a Democratic candidate with half the blemish as President Trump? What do you think is going to happen? Especially if Democrats keep their foot on the pedal the way things are going right now. Again, guys, you don't have to agree. This is the Baptiste Show. We enjoy having you listening to our show here and our podcast, no matter if you're watching or just listening in. It's a pleasure to bring you a fresh take, a fresh perspective. We wanted to do this special podcast about who's running and who they are in terms of the Republican primaries. This is not the last time that we'll be doing this. We're talking about some of the issues that these guys are trying to drive home. But the candidates to really watch for, based on my opinion here, obviously President Trump, because there are so many variants and so many factors here. Vivek is also someone to watch out for. He's the wild card in this. Potentially, I believe if President Trump was to win the primaries, Vivek might be a potential VP candidate that he chooses, because he transcends the Republican Party in terms of bringing in more diversity, in terms of bringing in more young people to a party that's always been seen as older and less diverse in America. So he's transcending that narrative right now. So that's someone that the Republicans might need to bring into the fold here. And then, of course, you have Mike Pence, who's been on the inside, who knows how to run effective campaigns and whatnot. So let's see if he can catch fire at the right time and really come into second place in this race here. But obviously, we cannot count out or leave out Governor DeSantis. He has a lot of bravado. This is someone who has the governorship in the state of Florida. He's in the news and getting a lot of free press as we speak to you right now, especially with Hurricane Idalia having battered the state of Florida, more precisely the Tampa and Gulf Coast area. So all those put him in the national mainstream media as coming across as whether or not he's an effective leader or not. So this is what people want to see. Is someone that's been tested in crisis. How does he respond in crisis? And whether it was COVID and whatnot, when he stood with President Trump and some of President Trump's policies, or right now, how he's dealing with the hurricane and the recovery efforts that are coming, people are going to decide on that. And watch out for the polls. The polls are going to move based on that as well. Again, it's quite interesting. We have not spoken much about the Democrat side because we told you what's going on. But we'll come back another day and then dive a little deeper with what might happen with President Biden getting reelected. Because keep in mind, President Biden's age right now is a factor because he was already the oldest serving U.S. president. Imagine him having to take office after winning against the potential primary winner for the Republican Party a few years down the line. It's going to be interesting. This is the Baptiste Show with Roberto Baptiste. Always a pleasure, a joy to come into your homes. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to our channel. It's at Baptiste with an S at the end, Baptistes Show. SHOW, one word, Baptiste Show, that across all social media platforms. Subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Instagram and Twitter as well. Again, guys, it's a pleasure to come into your home. Today, we discussed everything about the Republican primaries and the first debate that went on. Until next time, stay safe and remember, as Americans, we all are struggling with our own issues and journeying through this land, hoping and working to make it a better land for our kids in the future. Take care, guys.